All right, folks, I'm looking at the Chapter 9 PowerPoint, and, I always make the assumption you guys are reading the chapter, right? I don't know to what degree you guys actually are, obviously, but I do want to give you a fair warning that next week we will have a quiz covering materials from like the midterm up until now. It'll be like the other quiz and the exam, not really that heavy, open book, open note, whatever. It will be online only and not done in class. So you guys are aware of that. All right, so Chapter 9, I'm a few slides in already, talks about social computing. When I decided to teach this course, what's kind of interesting is this is my first time teaching this course here at Gateway, right? I usually assign it to other people, but this time around I assigned it to myself, right? But I've taught this style of course at other institutions many times over. And it usually falls into the realm of what we call management information systems. That's kind of the topic area. And really what it's about is showing how technology is used to change the processes that we use in organizations to move information around, what technology is actually involved, hardware, software, et cetera. And what the ramifications are for improving our lives, kind of. That's really kind of the way I look at it. When I took the course on, the first thing that I do, and it's pretty common with instructors, is like, hey, I haven't taught this course before. Can I copy your course shell? So I asked a bunch of my faculty to look at their course shells, right? And then I noticed that the couple of people that shared them with me skipped this chapter. Well, that's exactly what my question was. Because, social computing is not as important as, information systems, or databases or something like that. Okay, granted, maybe, but I disagree. Whenever you have some sort of a platform that has billions of users, like Facebook, like one social media site has over 1 billion users, that's pretty darn significant in my mind. The fact that most of us spend a good portion of our day when we're on a computer using social media, I think is critical too. And that's why I decided not to do what they did. I have the opposite mindset. So my mindset is social computing is perhaps one of the most important technology issues that we have right now, honestly. Now, if you look at this, right, and I'm not going to talk about the case, but each chapter starts out with a case study. And really what it talks about is how we're taking these social platforms, like we started with MySpace, right? And then we moved to Facebook. And we all got on Facebook, and then Facebook is like, well, hey, we can deliver ads, right? And now they have all these other services that are built in too, right? Like what else can you do on Facebook aside from just look at ads and silly cat videos? Right? So you can promote like a business.
Almost like eBay and buy stuff from people.
Exactly. And you know what? I think I maybe mentioned this where like my car mechanic used to like buy cars, fix them up, sell them on Craigslist usually, right? Then he started putting them on Facebook and he gets a much better response rate. And better analytics are built in and everything. So yeah, it's switching from like not only a place where people interact, but somebody smart, right, is saying, well, if all these people are using this, here's a chance to make some money, right? And that's why it's important, because all of a sudden we got money in the mix. Not only that, but the social computing is now extending into what we call the enterprise. All right, so, we talk about all this Web 2.0 stuff, which we mentioned earlier, right? And here's kind of a fascinating concept in itself. What the heck is a meme?
Meme.
Well, really, if I was to ask you a question, like maybe on a test or a quiz, hint, hint, what is a meme? Define a meme in your own words. I mean, it can be anything, right? It's usually some sort of a picture with words over it that are maybe ironic or silly or funny. I mean, that's what we think of, right? Do you know that from an advertising standpoint, there are professional advertising and marketing firms that design some of those memes? Sometimes it's people, but sometimes it's companies because they know that just by putting their product in that meme, and if it gets legs and gets viral, all of a sudden you might be poking fun at Coca-Cola, but everybody's thinking Coca-Cola. So it's pretty huge. It's a pretty huge mechanism. My son, right, he's way into memes, but he does not do Facebook. You know what he does? Reddit. How many of you guys use Reddit?
Ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
And have,
Disaster.
but what is Reddit?
It's
Everything.
yeah.
Subreddit
Yeah.
of anything that you could possibly think of.
If
Some
you're a
things that you
gamer,
don't want to think of.
Is there anybody here that's never even heard of Reddit? It's okay to admit it. That's all right, right? So if you just go and just type Reddit, right? That's how it's spelled. That's her icon. Sometimes you see it on some sites. But what I find that it's really interesting is he gets into this, and the whole thing about Reddit is people are sharing, links to things that they read. So I read it, and I'm sharing it with you, right? So like people will put in links to videos or websites or memes or whatever. And what my son does is he scours Reddit, finds funny, ironic memes, saves them on his phone, and then shows them to his friends. He's like, hey, check this out. He does it to me and my wife. He's got, like, his whole memory card is filled with all these, like, silly memes.
Back at those orange arrows.
Which I find it really fascinating, kind of like just the mindset behind it. But he refuses to do Facebook, right? He's got the mindset of like, well, my grandma's on Facebook, so I'm not going to be communicating with my friends. But it's just like a whole thing. And the one that he's really stuck on lately, is like, he's been doing it for a while. There's like there's a subreddit for like Scottish tweets or something like that. And then what he does is he reads them back with a Scottish accent. We just all die laughing. And literally, it's just like screen grabs of Twitter posted on Reddit of like these complete like Scottish like hooligan idiots like posting like stuff in their own like Scottish slang.
I have no idea what they're saying.
But it's like a whole thing. People are spending time doing this. And yes, Reddit is more in the fashion of what we call old school threaded conversations, right? And that technology has been around a really long time. We used to have this thing called Usenet on the internet, which were all threaded conversations. Some of them not so nice and polite. But that technology basically has kind of evolved into Reddit and other forums, basically. All right. What makes a lot of this stuff work are some of these technologies that you see here. So we talked about RSS when we did the Kahoot, right? How it's kind of like a broadcasting technology. You can tap into a feed and pull information in. But a lot of the stuff that like Google does uses this technology called AJAX, which stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Remember me mentioning XML a little bit. I'm not expecting you to memorize that, but what it allows us to do is like think about like most of the time that you go to like Facebook or use your Gmail or anything on Google, and how you can be on a web page and it kind of behaves like a regular application, right? And in fact, what's happening with that technology is it allows what we call server-side interactions to be able to pull in content from a server, like an email message or a video or somebody's comments or their icons or memes or whatever, without refreshing the page, right? And for web coders, like most of you guys are not in that category, that's like a thing, right? Because you learn how to code a page, but then how do you make it behave like a regular application when it's in a web browser? And Ajax is one of those technologies. The other thing that you see a lot of people doing is this concept of tagging, like they use the hash mark, right? And I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but like you see like somebody will say like, hashtag, meme or whatever, right? And really all it does is create a virtual link, right? And then anybody else that's put that in their posts kind of links them all together. And then you get the you know, the @ sign, like if you're a Twitter person, where whatever your handle is, you know, whatever your screen name is, and you put that in front of it and it kind of links all your stuff together. And then sometimes you see it on Facebook and you go like, why are they doing like hashtag like Trump, hashtag football, hashtag, you know, pulled pork or whatever, you know, whatever their thing is. I was really reaching there. Pulled pork was on the brain. But why they do that, that's more of a Twitter convention. But you know what a lot of people do now? And Alan Pearson, one of our software instructors, he does this on social media. He basically either posts from Twitter or from Facebook, and he's got them linked together. So if he puts something on Twitter, pops up on his Facebook post, and vice versa, you know? And some people have there's entire services that are built for doing that. Now the question I always ask people about social media, like why is it you walk into every store and they say, like us on Facebook?
That's where people.
Right, you get people where they interact. But you know what? They wouldn't do it if it didn't work. That's the bottom line. So what is it that, let's say, like a company like Walmart could gain from having a Facebook presence?
Well, they can utilize your list, your friends list, because at that point, if they have something that's on your page that represents Walmart, and somebody, say for instance, a sister, brother, some friend, hops on your page, and they see that on your page, then they get that eye contact with that whole Walmart thing. Like, oh.
Well, and yeah, and really what drives a lot of that, James, is like, let's say you go to Pizza Hut, I'm throwing something out there, and you really loved your pan pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go onto Facebook and you like the Pizza Hut page, right? And then all your friends can see that you've liked it. But the companies that are smart, at least the ones that I've noticed, if you like their page, you can get like coupons that you might not get otherwise, right? Does anybody ever do that stuff?
Never really.
You should check it out. Because there's been a couple of instances where like I'd be walking around the store and I think one of them was like Home Depot or something, and it's like us on Facebook and get a 20% off coupon. I'm like, hell yes, I'm about to spend a couple $100, you know? Right? I'll go ahead and like you guys if I can save, you know, some money. So sometimes there's a little trade-off. But it is really a wonderful way to promote things without having to like put any money into you know, creating content. Do you know there's companies out there that hire people to do Facebook all day long? It's an actual job. I know some people that do that. I have some former students that do that. And you know what? They get paid pretty well.
What would they be doing?
Making a post, responding to messages, updating banners. There's people that work at web design firms who specialize in creating social media presence. When we teach our capstone course, which is our project class in the web program, and we create a website for somebody, depending on their needs, but if we were doing a website from scratch and it was like for a business or like a church or something like that, we would create the website. Then we'd also say, do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a Google Plus profile? Although those are kind of phasing away. Right. Although the business profiles, you know, this is kind of one of these things I always show people. Like, if you're on Google, right? And I'm just going to give you an example. If I type like Kohl's, like the department store, right? You notice that little side blurb that pops up on Google, and some businesses get that and some businesses don't?
Yeah.
That's generated from a Google Plus profile. And if you're a small business, and a lot of them don't even realize this, how do you get one of those? You set up a business profile with Google. There's like a spot on their website. Say that again?
You have to pay for it though.
No. Absolutely free.
Oh.
Yeah.
What site are you
And I learned Google, you just use Google. And I learned at a conference that I went to, where they had a person from Google talking about the number one way to boost traffic to a website, if you have a business or an organization, was to create a business profile in Google. And back then, you just did it through Google+. And then in order to verify it, what they would do is they would send you a physical piece of mail. And then once you got that mail, there was instructions about to go to a website, type in a code, blah, 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 you know, and then all of a sudden, you're official. And by doing that, you get that side blurb, and all of a sudden, you jump way up on the search listings. I had a group of students, as a matter of fact, that we created, and here, I'll do it even a better way. So this guy, crippled guy, right, he got hurt in a car accident, went to MATC, learned how to repair lawnmowers and snowblowers, and then opened up a business on 16th Street here somewhere called Wheels Small Engine Repair. And he came to us saying, hey, I need a website. You know, I don't have a website. You know, there's these other guys in towns that are like the big player, and they have a website, so I need a website too. And we're like, cool. So we did this. We did lawnmower repair, right? So here I am in Racine. I'm going to search that. And take a look. He pops up on a map, right? Okay, the first one's an ad, right? Not too bad.
Wow.
He's there, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, and actually if you went back, see that, and these are kind of like the map results, but if you look at the actual search engine results, we got them to the top of the search engine in Racine.
Huh.
And one of the tools we used was that Google Plus business profile. We also set up a Facebook presence, a couple of other social media things. We built his website. We carefully chose the content that went on the website and studied it so that we knew that, like, what it takes for Google to get you up there. So we taught this concept called SEO, which is search engine optimization, which is a big aspect of social media. So why do people do social media? It's kind of like when you're fishing, right? The more times you cast, or the more poles you put out, or the more nets or whatever, the more stuff you catch. And social media is part of that strategy. So like, if I have a Facebook page and a Pinterest page and an Instagram page, and I'm like up on it, it's just another way to bring traffic into the site. So my students created this website. It was all hand-coded, right? It's nothing really fancy, but you know what? It put him on the map, and he is so happy with the results. He's like, anytime you need anything fixed, just let me know. I'll fix it for free, you know? So you make these connections at the same time. But we literally put him on the map business-wise to the point where his website's popping up above the listings for all the other big players in town. And I'm not even sure who they are anymore, but, you know. But that's how it happened. And then if you kind of like scroll down, I'm sure somewhere, see there's Facebook and then Google+. What's that?
Is Google Plus still a thing?
It's going away as a format. You know, and if you guys ever experimented with it, that's like one of those platforms that's like, oh, this isn't Facebook, right? But you know who used it a lot? Kids my daughter's age. My daughter's like 14 now. All her friends would do Google Plus and Google Hangouts. And why? Because they're all connected together, right? So they all do Hangouts and they chat and they video chat and, you know, get themselves in trouble at school and share images and, you know, that kind of thing. But it's all linked together. And because it wasn't Facebook and their parents really weren't using it, they felt like they could talk freely until mom and dad are looking, right? Right. So kind of interesting, folks. What's geotagging? Yeah, it's location. Do you guys know that every time you take a picture with your phone, it's got, you know, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, you know, GPS chips in here? Every picture you take on your phone has, like, you know, 47.5 degrees north, 35 degrees, you know, west. They know exactly where you were when you took that picture. What?
Shows you exactly where you took the picture on your photos.
Yep. All of your photos that you take on your devices. A lot of cameras do the same thing. Did you know that you can go in and strip all that information out? They have tools where you can take the images and you can get into what they call the metadata and strip that stuff out. What a lot of people don't realize is when they're on social media, and you take a picture on their phone, and it uploads to Facebook, that if you know what you're doing, you can see, it's like, hey, where were they when they took, oh. You told me you were working that day. All right, let's move on.
Which is ironically what the article was about.
Yeah, we didn't even talk articles today, did we? Eric is reminding me. All right. Okay, a bunch of different types of Web 2.0 applications. We kind of talked about what this means. Would you guys consider YouTube a social media platform?
Yeah.
Why?
Just communication, comments.
Because you can comment.
Yeah, commenting. You can subscribe to a channel, right? And if you subscribe to a channel, that's a form of a feed,
Yeah.
right?
And there's actual like live videos that you can live chat.
That's right.
All that stuff.
And I've experimented with that technology, actually, even broadcasted my classes that way a couple times. You know, the thing that's kind of interesting is blogs are kind of like the first Web 2.0 thing, and then wikis came out. Do you guys know what the word wiki means, just as a word? You guys ever heard that, or where it comes from? It's a Hawaiian word that means quick, like get it done quick, right? And the whole concept of a wiki is collaborative editing. Well, that's a scary thing, right? Let's put up a website and let anybody change the content. Which is exactly why your teachers say, don't use Wikipedia as a source. However, here's the irony of it. I find it to be one of the best sources of information because they've kind of changed their paradigm. Yes, anybody can edit, but they have people that scrutinize it now, right? So it's like if you put in content and says, well, this thing could use a citation, right? Or this is really kind of meandering and you guys need to clean this up a little bit. But what you do with Wikipedia, what it is good for, is the people that do it properly and then tell you where they got their information. You can go to the bottom of the page. You can say, where did they get that? Oh, here's a link to it. Yeah, so then you go to the actual source and pull in the information. But I actually find it's a wonderful source of information. Whenever you're working on collaborative documents, and that's something I do daily in my work here at Gateway. So like if I do scheduling, I have a spreadsheet that I share with our department associate and all my faculty. So if I schedule them out for the fall, which I already have done, I can just say, hey guys, here's a link. Take a look at the spreadsheet. Oh, if there's something that you think is wrong, you know, fix it and then type a comment off to the right so I can see, you know, and we can all work on the same document at the same time. That's kind of a form of a wiki. Is that a bad thing?
It's only bad if the person puts in bad information.
Right, there you go. Right. That's the part that ruins it. But you know what? Hey, that's kind of like the real world.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like talking to somebody in person. Somebody could tell you a piece of information that's absolutely useful, and somebody can say something that's completely nonsensical, and well, like, what are you talking about? It's just human conversation. It's human interaction. All right. Podcasts and video casts. All right, so I'm the kind of person that, you know, used to drive the car, turn on the radio, play some music, listen to some talk radio. Started changing my paradigm. You get a phone, get some earbuds. I think I never turn on the car stereo anymore. I usually download a podcast. And you know what? You can download stuff on Netflix now and Amazon Prime and all those, like, you know, services. And, you know, every once in a while, like, you know, got a video going while I'm driving the car. Granted, I'm not really watching it. And I have students go, yeah, I was listening to your lecture while I was driving. And I'm like, what? Are you crazy? It's like, no, I was just listening. I'm like, I hope so. Because if you're watching me code on this screen while you're driving, oops, you know, dog, grandma, that can be scary. But you know what? That's what's going to happen when we get autonomous vehicles, folks. People are going to use that time to, like, binge watch stuff. Not to do homework. They're going to be, like, liking things on Facebook.
Gaming, probably.
And watching, like, the latest season of, like, The Punisher on Netflix, or something, you know?
End up like the people on Wall-E.
We're halfway there, Eric. All we need is some big gulps and some electric scooters. I go to Walmart now and I see people riding those electric scooters that don't need to be riding them. It's like, get up and walk. No wonder, no wonder you're so big. All right.
Eating processed food.
Right. We share videos online, we share music online, or photographs online for sure. Well, this is kind of a weird thing though. You guys ever use the printers here on campus?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people do, some people don't, right? I try to stay away from them. I've been in a paperless mentality for about 20 years now, where like in my classrooms, I never take a piece of paper from anybody. It's like they hand me a paper and it's like, email it, or it doesn't count. Because I'm just gonna take this and lose it, or recycle it. So that's a thing. Crowdsourcing. What's crowdsourcing?
Getting money.
Say that again?
Said getting money.
Yeah, getting money. All right, so let me give you a real quick example here. Like, real big crowdsourcing site, Kickstarter is one of them, right? And what happens with Kickstarter is you get a project of some sort out there, and you get people to contribute money to it. Then as a result of contributing money to it, they either get like a piece of the profits, or they get a free T-shirt, or or a discount on the product when it becomes available, that kind of thing. What some of these services do, though, that's kind of interesting is, let's say I put a Kickstarter up there wanting $10,000 so I can, like, I don't know, get my cancer surgery. Some people do stuff like that. You don't get the money unless you get people to pledge all $10,000. You know what kind of projects that actually came out of Kickstarter that were successful? 3D printers was like the real big early one. Somebody had an idea for a 3D printer, did a Kickstarter campaign. A lot of people were like, this will never go anywhere. Wrong, right? 3D printers are kind of like the replicators you see in the Star Trek TV show. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
When they send people to Mars, instead of like sending them with like every possible tool there is, they're going to send them with 3D printers, and whenever they need a certain tool, they just print it. Right? And then when the Martians invade, they can print ray guns. Right, exactly. Crush, kill, destroy, right?
Like, what is that? There's a remake of an old TV show, Lost in Space.
Yes.
And they had a replicator. There was a special code you have to have in order for it to go ahead and replicate the product.
That's exactly right. That's a really good reboot series. If you guys haven't seen that on Netflix, I'd recommend it. Even my wife liked it.
Oh,
Yeah, so
yeah, I was surprised. Is that the one with the one?
yeah.
Change your will, Bob.
All right, I'm moving on here. All right. That's actually kind of an interesting thing, because we have this like thing, it's like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, a couple others are social media. You know how many social media sites there really are? So there's so many, it's insane. You know what? MySpace is still out there. It's changed a lot. I forget who bought into it. Justin Timberlake or something like that bought into it, yeah. Which is a reason not to use it right there. I'm just kidding. But there are many. In fact, there's so many, and so many of them are customized that chances are you can probably find a site that's really keen to your own interests. So for example, I'm kind of a Volkswagen enthusiast, right? I own a lot of Volkswagens. There's a really popular social media platform for Volkswagen people called the Samba, right? And if I'm ever looking for a part, or how to fix something, or where to find something, or an answer for like, hey, what kind of oil should I use, or whatever, I just go there, and there's so many people that are so specialized and know their stuff. You can get responses for stuff. So for example, not the car I'm driving today, but my other one, it's almost just like it. I needed to get a part for the transmission called a torque converter, but it's really specialized, so it's like a certain model year, certain engine type, certain transmission type, and they're all stamped. And like you look online, on eBay, and all these places, nothing, right? Our auto parts store, junkyards, nothing. Hop up on the forum, make a post. Hey, I got one of those sitting on the shelf. Sure, $20, I'll ship it out, no problem. Boom. So that's like one of the benefits of like all those like custom ones. All right. This one is kind of interesting, and I think this is where social media really flexes its muscle and has had historical impact on the world. Okay, so they're talking about the Iranian election here and Twitter. You know, for whatever you guys know about Iran, right? They're kind of been at odds with the U.S. for quite a while. We used to like kind of support them, and then they flipped and got all like kind of very religious, and they're headed by religious people, and they kind of locked the country down a lot, and really try to control a lot of like what's going on and what people see and think and hear in that country. But one thing they really couldn't control is the internet, and when everybody started getting phones, everybody's on the internet, all of a sudden, you know, people get clever. They use VPNs, they bypass all the security, and information gets through. So the lies they're being told in their own country, all of a sudden they're getting used from the outside saying, hey, this says that we're all like messed up here. Why aren't they telling us that? You know, that kind of thing. When Egypt had their Arab Spring, right? The first thing the Egyptian government did is they shut down all external communications. Phone lines, TV, radio, all that stuff. You know what they couldn't control? That there's people that are like near the border of Israel or Libya or Ethiopia or, you know, the northern coast of Africa, where they can tap into like Greek cell phone towers and still pull in the news. And more importantly, send out news that we're not hearing because they're blocking it all. And they attribute the fact that that revolution happened there because the social media was getting the news through, even though the country was trying to block it. That's huge, you guys. I mean, we live in a place where, love it or hate it, whatever the problems are, generally speaking, if we want a piece of information about anything, we can get it. It's not really filtered, right? It is to some degree, you know. You don't have to get your news from Facebook. In fact, you shouldn't. But we also have the capability and the smarts to circumvent all that and still get the information through.
It's actually similar to what's happening with Reddit in China. They're trying very hard to block Reddit.
Right.
People are getting through and they're protesting through there or something like that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Eric. You know, and here's kind of interesting. If you're in China and you're Googling something, where do you go? You can't use Google in China. They have this website called Baidu. Yeah, which is basically the Chinese version of Google. Look at the characters there. Yeah. So why is it huge? Yeah, we can click on the logo. Well, this looks like stock market. This is, let's see, 2019, 3/13, that must be the date. And maybe the weather forecast. Right? Oh, I could. Yeah, but that's no fun. All right, fine, I'll translate. Translating. But if you're in China, so why does China want to block Google in their own country?
So they can suppress the media because they're a communist government.
Right, they are. So for as much as they've adopted the free market in the last couple decades and have really become an economic force, they are still a communist country that controls what their people can see and do online. What's really bizarre about it, honestly, is that, you know, I think it's just so weird that to even have the concept of being in a country, and if I had like the strange brain where I wanted to look at porn, I can't because China doesn't allow it. So you might say, well, bravo for blocking it. That might be your mindset, right? Because that's just destroying society. But you know what it actually creates? Is this whole subculture of like people finding ways around it and creating problems.
The whole thing about China, like, again, I was watching an episode on the Grand Tour when they went to China, just driving down the highway, they have flashing cameras every, like, 10 feet in your face, and when you're, like, driving at night, all you see is, like, photos being taken of you, and it's insane how much they, like, control you and watch you.
1 out of every 4 people on the planet, folks, is Chinese. So if we were like a sampling of the world population, well, it's like a dozen people in here, 4 of you would be Chinese. Another 4 would be from India. And then there's the rest of us. You got to put that in perspective. And I always remember, and I always tell people when I teach them how to code, all the coding languages and all the computer technology works in English. Thank you very much. So you guys have like a head start on all those people, except for maybe the India people because they all speak English too, right? We talked about that last time. You know, if you want to learn another language though, Chinese isn't a bad, you know, Mandarin Chinese is not a bad language to learn if you plan on being in commerce. Really. Yeah, Baidu is their search engine. What the heck is an aggregator? I mean, there's a list of some.
The definition of a listening song.
Aggregator. Well, when you aggregate something, you're combining it together from many sources.
I thought
So,
it said aggregate.
well,
Aggravate.
no, I didn't say aggravate. I can just do that by playing some bad music, right? Aggregators are websites that combine information from a lot of different websites into one spot. So you remember how I told you that I used to like run newsfeed programs and I would pull in news sources so I could look at them all in one spot, and it's kind of moved away from that now. And the replacement now is like news apps on our phone, kind of the same approach. Well, there are websites that do that by design. And what they do is they bring you a whole bunch of information from one source. The truth is, most news sites do that. Do you think news sites, you know, if you look at, let's say, the Kenosha News Time or whatever they're called, Kenosha Journal, I don't know, whatever. Do you think they write all their stories? Well, they write the local ones. But a lot of the other stories that you read on the site come from somewhere else because they're like the Associated Press or from writers, right? Those are like the 2 big sources of news, and they just really are combining it into one spot. That's called an aggregation site. All right. So you guys, that's your homework, and we're not going to talk about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over to the cloud computing PowerPoint, which I have open somewhere, right here. Oops. Now, cloud computing is one of these areas, you know, and as we kind of mentioned, we were doing the Kahoot earlier, really huge inroads are being made in this field. In fact, it's probably one of the hottest fields in IT right now. What we learned from our advisory meeting, right, aside from data science, right, that's huge. Cloud computing is big, and computer support services apparently really big too. All right, so typically when we put together IT for business, we think about, you know, the computers we buy, the servers, the applications that we load, the wiring, the wireless, all that stuff that all kind of combines together, and even the departments and the people that run them. And it's a big investment for most companies. Think about a place like Gateway. Even when you take a class that's not an IT class, chances are you're probably using a computer. For sure you're emailing, for sure you're going on Blackboard, right? Why? Because it's in every industry. What would Gateway do without these things that are listed here? We would shut down. Everything runs on that infrastructure, right? And for the most part, a lot of the stuff that we run here on campus, well, it's changed. We used to run our own email servers. That changed about a decade ago. We used to run on-site Microsoft Exchange email servers. And then they had a big crash on the system, lost a bunch of messages, and they switched to Google and have not looked back. So this is an example of moving from an on-premise server running a piece of software that held all the information and data right here in the closet. It wasn't our closet, it's actually in Kenosha. To moving to a paid service where they pay Google for the Google Apps Suite. So all of their users, both students and faculty, staff, can access all their products. They don't have to manage the servers. They don't have to back anything up. Now, here's a question you should ask about it, though. Have they ever had a problem with it? Yes. Even the Google Mail crashes from time to time.
Yeah, they're always doing some sort of maintenance.
Yeah, in fact, there's a website, and I don't remember what it is, but you can, like Google Apps, status, and there's like a G Suite status dashboard, right? So you can look at their services, like all the different cloud, computing things that they offer, and notice they're all green right now, right? But there have been times where they're down. And we've even lost email service here a couple of times. Very, 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 very rare, though. Much rarer than relying on our own equipment. I don't know what it costs to put an organization like this on Google, but here's something interesting for you guys to know. If you ever start a small business or organization, nonprofit, whatever, and you need like email accounts, and it'd be, boy, it'd really cool if we could have like Gmail. Guess what? You can, and it's free for up to 50 users. Isn't that interesting? So you can just run all your email right off of Google. So like you would own your own website name, like, jamesmccracken.com, right? And then all your users would just be on your server running through Gmail. And you can do that. Kind of an interesting thought. That's all cloud computing. All the applications run in the cloud. So the way that we've kind of like moved through this, in the old days, remember we looked at those pictures of ENIAC, right? And that technology kind of evolved over time, but we used to run mainframe computers. In fact, if you got a computer in an organization back in the 50s or 60s or 70s, even the 80s, chances are it was some sort of standalone mainframe computer that would perform very specific tasks. Eventually, we would connect dumb terminals to them, which were basically a keyboard, screen, maybe a mouse, and then a little box that did the connection, right? All the applications ran on the server and would push an image to the screen, and you would just interact with it. So if they needed to do a backup or an upgrade or a virus scan, they just do it to one machine, right? And everything connects to it remotely. Usually within like a building, and maybe sometimes over a range, but usually in a building. Then we moved into the personal computer era, where we saw the rise of the PC. That was basically in the 80s and 90s, where you had machines like these that operate under their own power, can do stuff on their own, don't necessarily need to connect to the outside world, but can also connect up to the mainframes and act as a dumb terminal. Like when you walk into a bank, folks, and people are using a computer to check your account, chances are they're just running some application or browser-based application that's connecting to a remote machine. Yes, that computer can play solitaire all on its own and Battlefield with the right video card, but the application is really still using that approach of like a server or a mainframe that runs the application and is pushing it to the local machine. Just think of like how your Gmail works, right? It just comes up in your browser, it works. Think of how YouTube works. Like with YouTube, not only can you watch videos, did you know that you can create videos right inside of YouTube? You drop in images, type in text, load up some music, right? It's all built right into the platform. You don't have to install anything, it's all just there. And you know what? It works pretty damn well. Right? So that approach for applications is what cloud computing is kind of all about. So that's kind of the era that we've moved into. And what happens here is there's a big shift in how businesses are operating as a result. So when you start to realize that I don't have to run my own equipment, it might actually be cheaper if I take that IT guy and give him some higher level task rather than sitting there upgrading, maintaining, backing up the server, wiring it, you know, whatever. Takes a lot of time, money, and effort. Not that that's not a skill that's important, but if I can just farm that off and pay a monthly fee, now I can take that person and redirect them to do some higher level task, like earn us some more money somehow, right? And that's what cloud computing is driving in the ultimate sense. All right. All right, so, okay, so a cheesy picture of a data center. But there are places like this, folks, and I talked about the one for Northwestern Mutual down in Kenosha, where you walk into these buildings and they have racks upon racks upon racks of high-end computing equipment that powers entire enterprises, storage devices, you know, servers, you know, network switches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then if there's some places around the country where you get these giant, like, several 100,000 square foot warehouses where every inch of floor space in that building is filled with computing technology. When we say what is the cloud is a collection of places like that. What runs on these machines really depends. For the most part, the way that it operates is we run a host operating system, and then that host operating system is there just to run other operating systems virtually. So even the stuff that we're connecting to is not really like a real computer, it's a virtual computer. So that virtualization is a huge thing. What happens with a lot of organizations, and when the bigger they get, they end up creating like multiple data centers, most of which replicate each other. So I might have a data center in Chicago that is, you know, and it might, you know, just be one rack that's, let's say for my business, that also has that same rack in New York, in Florida, and Texas, and California, and the Northwest, and overseas, and off on some island somewhere, right? And all that data is replicating across all those data centers all the time. So a bomb drops, asteroid hits, malicious attack happens, somebody cuts the cord, the power goes out, you know, volcano, I don't know, think of something, you know, that happens. We knock out one, it's all still up. Bomb drops here in my closet over there across the street, my web program's offline. Because our web server is one machine in that closet, it's not replicated, just one machine. Think about that, right? So the other thing that the cloud really brings us is that capability of really staying online all the time with no downtime, because it's so replicated and distributed, there's no reason for it to ever go down. That's kind of a mind-boggling thing right there, you know. All right. Different kind of cloud infrastructures. All right, so public, private, hybrid, vertical. You can see all these like different things off on the slides here. But when we think of like a public cloud, how many of you guys use Google Drive to store your stuff? OneDrive, Dropbox, SugarSync, none of that stuff, right? Remember I told you guys don't use flash drives? Right? Because what happens is you take that flash drive, plug it into the machine, do my stuff, save my paper, walk out of the room, drive all the way home and go, my flash drive's still in the computer.
Yeah, one day.
And if you're lucky, you come back and find it. Or maybe a teacher grabbed it. If you take your stuff and you put it up on your Google Drive, store it there, you can log into any computer or device with internet access and get to your stuff. So, is that a public cloud? Yeah, because you know what? I can get a free Gmail account, and it comes with Google Drive. And I can put stuff in it right away. Now, it is private in that people can't see my stuff unless I share it with them. But if I want to share it with them, it's pretty easy to do. So think about that. Is there anybody here that has not used Google Drive at all to do school stuff? Okay, so you guys are all on board. That's fantastic, especially considering this is technically a first semester class. So one thing I always like to do is like show people how to use it. And you guys should use those technologies to share anything that you're working on currently. The question that a lot of people get though is it secure? What do you think, Eric? Can be. There's a lot of strategies. Yeah, you can encrypt the files, that's one way. There are actually platforms where your stuff is secure, costs a little more money in some cases. But you know, there's a price for free, right? Why is Gmail free?
Because they use their ad money to pay for it.
Yeah, well, you know, my wife still uses Yahoo Mail. I can't stand it. Because she, you know why? Because she's always had that account, right? She doesn't want, but she brings it up on her screen. I'm like, wait, there's all these like ads and videos, and I'm like, what the hell is that? You know, like, step back. You know, I don't want to use the site at all. What does Google do with their they don't have like ads in the middle of the screen. So how are they paying for it? What's the trade-off? There ain't no free lunch, folks, right? They're giving you that email for free. Why?
Information, your personal information.
Yeah. So in other words, don't do a drug deal through Gmail. You get right? You get the point? Because when you're typing stuff, you should test this sometime. Type an email, hell, send it to yourself, and say, hey, don't forget to look up books about HTML, right? Then go to Facebook, bring up some stuff, and you tell me if you get some ads about learn to code in HTML. How did that happen? They filter through your stuff, folks. Don't think that those emails are private. If you're having an argument with a friend or you're saying some nasty stuff, you might not want to use Gmail or your free accounts to do it. Or Facebook for that matter.
I got something quick. I was on Facebook Messenger one time and it suggested an online Bible, and I'm just thinking, I don't do anything religious. Why did they suggest a Bible? And never said anything about religion to anyone. And all of a sudden they want me to read the Bible.
I could speculate.
Free game. It's like, oh, he's not religious.
Maybe it's something as simple as you drove past a church and you stopped at the stoplight and it geolocated you and it's like, hey, you're right by St. Matthew's. You must be a good Christian. Let's send him a Bible ad.
Or they might be saying all the weird stuff I'm doing, like all the horror stuff, and say, okay, you need God to fix what you've done.
Maybe.
Cypher's the weirdest stuff. I read all the horror novels. For some reason I started 50 Shades of Grey, and I don't know why. I can't finish it. It's so funny. Once you know what the plot is, then all the stuff he finds, it's like, I know what this is about, and I can't stop laughing. I can pass the first 3 chapters.
All right, I'm going to move us forward here. No offense, Eric. But you're talking about all the different types of cloud computing technologies. And if you look at this like goofy little chart here, this is kind of what we're going through right now in IT. The old paradigm really was the first column on the left, where we would run on-premise software. So you'd have our own equipment, our own network, all that stuff in place. So everything that we did was here, on-site, on a machine, in the closet, down the hall, the next building over, something like that, right? And all of it was run by our people and controlled by our people. And you know what? If you really want security, that's still the best, right? Because you're in control of it. You know, because you can always just pull the plug on the internet and nobody can get to your machine, right? Nothing's more secure than just cutting the cord. But when you see these other columns and what we're doing, like moving to these other paradigms, really what the big computing companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are trying to get us to do, and they're being pretty successful about it, is they're trying to get us to move away from this concept that we need to have our own high-end equipment, like servers, and we need to get away from like buying software that we install. And so the ultimate thing is that software as a service where all of it, it doesn't matter what device you're on, tablet, phone, PC, Mac, whatever, desktop, laptop, you know, Pi, whatever, as long as you can get to like some sort of an interface, usually the web browser, that can run all your software and you don't have to worry anything about it, that's where they're pushing us. There's advantages and disadvantages. But are we going there as a whole? Without a doubt. The enterprise level organizations, and Gateway is a perfect example, more and more is shifting to that paradigm. We used to actually run Blackboard on our own servers at Gateway. In fact, they had ended it like a few years before I got here. And you know, the staff would always grumble. It's like, now that it's hosted, it's not quite as fast as it used to be. You know, so when you guys tap into Blackboard here at Gateway, it's running on the Blackboard servers in Pennsylvania. That's where their servers are. And most big schools, technical colleges, universities, even like grade schools and stuff, use Blackboard. And it's better for the organizations if they just buy the service. You're doing it through your browser anyhow. What does it matter where it's connecting to? It must be that much cheaper. So that's where everything is going, folks. All right, I think we covered a lot of these other ones that I wanted to hit. So at this point, I'm going to say that we're done. However, I'm just going to ask you really quick, does anybody have any articles that they thought were so important that they must share them? Or do you guys want to leave 10 minutes early? All right, 10 minutes early. Thanks a lot, you guys.